Picture
day.
this. The whistle
For
goes.
example, if someone is
Spain
sad,
has just won the World Cup. Half the stadium is losing its mind, and on the other side of the pitch, grown men are grabbing each other by the throat. And in the middle of all that chaos, one man does nothing at all. He doesn't throw a punch. He doesn't post a defiant caption later that night. He just walks around, quietly, and shakes every single Spanish player's hand. Then he sits down on the grass, and he cries. That man is Lionel Messi. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree, what he didn't do said more than everything everyone else did say, put together. More than 23 million furious petition signatures. More than a FIFA president posting a 15-slide rant on Instagram. Stick with me, because to understand why that quiet moment hit so hard, you first need to understand the mess it was sitting inside of. Nobody with any sense actually believed FIFA was going to ban an entire country from the World Cup. That was never going to happen, and honestly, it shouldn't happen. You don't erase a nation over a post-match brawl. Millions of angry signatures are a mood. They're not a legal process. So what was the petition really about? Not banning Argentina. It was about millions of fans screaming, as loudly as they possibly could, that they believed the tournament had been tilted in Argentina's favor. To get why so many people believe that, you have to rewind to how the final actually ended. Spain had just beaten Argentina at MetLife Stadium, and the final whistle should have simply meant relief for one side and heartbreak for the other. Instead, it lit a fuse. As the Spanish players sprinted off to celebrate, Argentina's Nahuel Molina appeared to catch Spain captain Rodri in the stomach as he ran by. That was the spark. Nicolas Otamendi got right up in Rodri's face. Then Leandro Paredes came flying in, grabbed Spain's Eric Garcia by the throat, shoved him to the ground, and he and Thiago Almada then wrestled Gavi down too. Coaches from both benches came sprinting on to pull people apart. And here's the moment that turned an ugly scuffle into a genuine scandal. Argentina's own assistant coach, Roberto Ayala, was filmed with his hands at the neck of Spain's Dani Olmo. Not a player losing his head in the heat of the moment, a coach. On camera. At a World Cup final. To his credit, head coach Scaloni was out there too, trying to drag his own players away from the champions. But the damage was already done, and it got worse minutes later, when a large chunk of the Argentina squad physically turned their backs while Spain lifted the trophy. World champions being crowned, and the runners-up refusing to even watch. That single image is what sent the petition into overdrive. The petition didn't hold back. Its argument, in plain terms, the result had been decided before a ball was kicked, so why bother watching anyone else compete? And this wasn't some tiny corner of the internet. Organizers were hoping for 5 million signatures and blew past that number more than 4 times over. Once Spain lifted the trophy, the whole campaign closed with one short, cutting sentence. FIFA ignored us, but Spain delivered. Read that back. 6 words carrying the entire argument. These fans never expected FIFA to hold Argentina accountable, so instead, they just thanked the team that beat them. And funnily enough, some Argentine fans fired back with a petition of their own, not an apology, but a demand to replay the final because they believed the referee had favored Spain. 2 fanbases, walking away from the very same tournament, both absolutely convinced the whistle had been rigged against them. Think about how strange that is. Both sides think they got robbed. That's what it looks like when trust in a sport completely collapses. This is where it stops being a vibe and starts looking like something you can actually trace through the tournament. In the round of 16, Egypt had a goal wiped out by VAR over a tiny foul earlier in the move. Minutes later, at the other end, a penalty shout against Argentina got waved off just before Argentina scored the winner. Same referees, 2 very different standards, and Egypt went home furious. In the semi-final against England, Argentina committed 12 fouls in the first half alone and picked up exactly 1 yellow card, hacking down Jude Bellingham over and over with the card staying firmly in the ref's pocket. And in the final itself, a red card for Paredes' chokehold briefly appeared on FIFA's own official system, and then quietly disappeared, with no card ever shown. To be fair to FIFA here, none of this proves an actual conspiracy, and I want to be careful saying that. 1 or 2 odd calls happen in every tournament. That's football. But when it's the same team benefiting, game after game, at the exact moments that matter most, coincidence starts to feel like a stretch. It's a pattern millions of people watched happen live, in real time, and it's not something they've forgotten. Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. Days after that brawl, a letter from FIFA President Gianni Infantino to the Argentine Federation leaked to the press. In it, he reportedly praised the team for their professionalism at the tournament. Professionalism. Days after a mass brawl, a coach putting his hands on an opponent, and a snub trophy ceremony that had 23 million people up in arms. While the world was signing petitions, the head of FIFA was apparently sending a private thank you note. And then came the public response, which somehow made things worse. Facing a tournament full of controversy, Infantino skipped the press conference and posted a 15-slide rant on Instagram instead. He accused critics of being driven by hatred, insisted the tournament had delivered nothing but joy and flawless safety, and this is a real line from him, told people upset with FIFA to go meditate, pray, or watch a match. On the specific question of the officiating, he shrugged it off as normal for big competitions, and suggested it was strange that the very countries who used those same practices were now the ones complaining. That's not the response of an organization planning to look inward. That's a drawbridge going up. Think about that for a second. Your governing body is drowning in complaints about player safety, politics, and officiating, and the reply isn't a statement, a press conference, or even a proper interview. It's a 15-slide Instagram carousel telling everyone to go say a prayer. Because outside of Argentina, this tournament had real problems. Iran's head coach said his squad was the most mistreated team at the World Cup, hit with visa delays that forced them to move their entire training base out of the country. A referee from Somalia holding a diplomatic passport was reportedly turned away at the border. Fans from multiple countries got caught up in travel restrictions, with immigration officers reportedly stationed inside stadiums. Infantino's answer, in short, was to point at everyone who did get in and shrug off everyone who didn't. There was also a separate disciplinary controversy this tournament. I'll call it the Bologna case here, since the source audio wasn't fully clear on the name, where a player's suspension was reportedly dropped days after a phone call involving the President of the United States. UEFA called that decision a red line being crossed. Norway reportedly considered a formal complaint. FIFA called it routine. If the rules bend that easily once, why would anyone trust them to hold firm the next time? So when fans ask, will FIFA actually punish Argentina this time? You can see exactly where the doubt comes from. This isn't the first rodeo. Remember Qatar 2022, when Argentina were investigated over their celebrations, including the mocking of Mbappé? The punishment came out to a fine of roughly $25,000. No suspensions for any individual player. Pocket change for a national federation. That's the track record fans are working from. And it's not a one-off. Enzo Fernandez, the same player sent off in this final, had to publicly apologize back in 2024 after a video surfaced of him singing along to a squad chant that the French Football Federation condemned as racist. Goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez served a 2-game ban that same year for offensive conduct during qualifiers. Added up, the gesture, the chant, a political banner in 2014, the same banner again in 2026, and now a brawl with a coach's hands on an opponent. That's not a string of bad luck anymore. That's a pattern that keeps costing this team almost nothing. To be fair, this time might actually be different for the individuals involved. FIFA has opened 2 separate investigations, and unlike before, there's footage from every angle. One case covers the brawl itself, with Molina, Paredes, Almada, and assistant coach Ayala all reportedly under review. The second covers a political banner referencing the Falkland Islands that players including Giovanni Lo Celso and Lisandro Martinez held up after beating England, something FIFA explicitly bans. Argentina were fined around $30,000 for the exact same banner back in 2014, and did it again anyway. So 2 open cases, real chances of individual bans, but the national team itself? Completely fine. Automatically qualified for the next World Cup. The same protection, still in place. And the players are acting exactly like people who expect to be protected. Not one of them apologized. Paredes posted a long message about pride and giving everything for the badge, calling this the greatest Argentina squad ever, and never once mentioned grabbing a man by the throat. Enzo Fernandez posted about heartbreak and honor, without mentioning his red card. And Ayala, the assistant coach filmed with his hands on Almo's neck, gave what might be the weakest excuse of the night, calling it more of a shove than anything, supposedly a reaction to something Almo said. Almo shut that down instantly, telling a Catalan newspaper that anyone excusing a punch by blaming a comment is lying, and that he hadn't said a single word. Almo talked instead about setting an example for kids watching at home. Total contrast to everything Argentina's camp put out. Because Argentina aren't cartoon villains here, and it'd be lazy to pretend they are. This is a tightly bonded, genuinely brilliant group that fought its way to a third World Cup final in 12 years, and beat a strong England team fair and square in the semis. Say what you want about the controversy, nobody handed them that run. They earned every step of it on the pitch. As for the backs turn moment at the ceremony, Lisandro Martinez has since said it wasn't meant as a deliberate snub, and maybe it wasn't. Losing a World Cup final is an emotion most of us will never feel, and a flash of ugliness in that raw moment is human. A lifetime ban was always fantasy, and a slightly unfair one at that. You don't punish an entire country for what a handful of players and one coach did. FIFA choosing not to ban the team isn't proof of corruption. It's arguably the only reasonable call. The real, fair question is much narrower. Will the individual players who threw punches actually face consequences? Or is this Qatar all over again? Everything beyond that is just noise. Because here's what I think those 23 million signatures were actually reaching for. Nobody seriously wanted Argentina wiped off the map. They wanted, just once, to watch FIFA treat this team like everyone else. Instead they got automatic qualification, a leaked letter praising professionalism, and a president telling them to go meditate. The biggest petition in the sport's history landed on FIFA's desk, and FIFA's answer was to protect the exact team it was aimed at. That's the real headline here, not that Argentina deserved a ban, but that FIFA was never, ever going to consider one. The brawl. The petition. The non-apologies. The leaked letter. In the middle of all that noise, Lionel Messi didn't say a word, and that silence might be the loudest part of this whole story. While his teammates were online defending themselves and throwing punches on the pitch, Messi did the opposite. He didn't fight. He walked the length of the pitch and shook the hand of every Spanish player. BBC pundit Joe Hart put it simply, there was one man out there with class, and it was Messi. Spain's teenage star Lamine Yamal, a kid born after Messi had already turned pro, came over just to console him. Then Messi sat down on the MetLife turf, legs stretched out, staring at the celebration, and he broke down completely. He'd had the last tango stitched into the sole of his boots before the game. And once it was over, while his teammates flooded social media with pride and zero accountability, Messi posted nothing. No defense, no statement. He flew home to Rosario, to his family, and stayed quiet. That silence was the statement. By refusing to join the noise, refusing to defend the indefensible, shaking every hand, grieving with real dignity, and then just quietly leaving, he drew the clearest possible line between himself and everything the world had grown to resent about that team. He didn't need to say, "I'm not part of this." His actions said it for him, cutting through 23 million signatures and a 15-slide Instagram post like either one had ever existed. And this might genuinely be the last time we see it. Paredes let something slip afterwards, saying, in his words, that he thinks Messi has made his decision, and that the final really was his last match for the national team. Messi himself hasn't confirmed anything. He never does. He just lets time answer for him. But at 39 years old, with those words already stitched into his boots, everyone watching understood what those tears on the grass might have meant. There's a strange, almost poetic detail here too. MetLife Stadium is the exact same ground where, a decade earlier, a younger Messi lost the 2016 Copa America final and walked away convinced he was finished with international football, before coming back and eventually winning it all in Qatar. The stadium that broke him once may have just given him one last goodbye. Because let's not forget what he actually did this tournament. Messi didn't drift through it as a passenger. He scored 8 goals, narrowly missed out on the Golden Boot, and produced the single biggest moment of the semi-final, drifting out to the right wing while Argentina were losing to England, then setting up both late goals himself, the assist for Enzo's strike and the cross for Lautaro's winner. He dragged a limited squad to a third final in 12 years almost single-handedly. His teammates spent the days after this final fighting, posting, and refusing to say sorry. Messi spent them saying goodbye, quietly. He might be the only one who understood that how you leave is the part people actually remember. FIFA was never going to ban Argentina, and it never was. The same protection that shielded them through Egypt, through England, through a red card that vanished off the system stayed right in place, all the way to a guaranteed spot at the next World Cup and a private letter praising their professionalism. 23 million people demanded accountability and got a shrug in return. The players involved in the brawl will find out soon whether FIFA actually follows through this time, or whether it's Qatar all over again. But the real verdict on this whole messy ending didn't come from a prosecutor, a petition, or a president. It came from the greatest player the game has ever seen, sitting alone on the grass, saying absolutely nothing, and somehow saying everything. No press release could have done what those few quiet seconds did. No statement could have drawn that line as clearly. So, tell me what you think. Does FIFA actually come down hard on the players this time, or does Argentina walk away clean like it always seems to? Drop your take in the comments. And if this really was Messi's last game in that shirt, stay close. I'll have the full breakdown the moment he confirms it himself.